Welcome to the Emerging Lawyer series at the Coffee Conversation Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum, TF, and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is Strategic Law, Human Leadership. We have with us a guest speaker, Yugandhara Shimpi, a seasoned legal strategist and general counsel with over 2 decades of experience steering organizations through complex legal and regulatory landscapes. Currently, she is heading corporate legal at Dun& Bradstreet, India. Yugandhara's journey spans global operations, high stakes negotiations, and building resilient legal frameworks that enable business growth. This conversation will dive into a professional philosophy, leadership approach, and the personal anchors that have shaped her remarkable journey. And we also come to know Yugandhara as a person, and we are now at AWFIS co-working space, and it's what do you say, Saturday with festival Eid Nowruz. So welcome, Yugandhara. Today's what do you say, festival episode.
Yeah, okay.
So let me explain you. There will be 3 rounds: professional, personal, and a surprise. The rapid fire round, where you are asking about the AI, and here's your thing you will get to know. So friend, I'm Lion Amir Virani, host at Coffee Corner, legal tech event at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 20 books. So my first question to you, Yugandhara, how has your understanding of the role of an in-house legal professional evolved over the years, and how has the journey been till date?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's my great pleasure to be here. So when I started, I started like 20 years back in the corporate space, corporate legal space, and the way I looked at it is, okay, my job is to review contracts, to advise on risk, and it more or less, it was more or less from the JDs that have the JDs have been circulated, or what my colleagues were doing and what my boss was doing, and it was just an observation. However, as we progressed and as in-house legal, even the understanding of what in-house legal team does has evolved over the period of time. And I also always, because I was always, customer facing, business facing, my interaction with business, my interaction with, slowly with the senior leaders, all of that has shaped my understanding of what this function is, right? It is not just a reactive function. It is not just a compliance function to whom you go and take your query to. It is a function that will, proactively support the businesses. It is the function that will shape the strategies for the businesses and the future course of action as well. So that's where we are right now, where we are strategically partnering with the businesses, where we are asked to, our opinion has to be taken alongside, all other key stakeholders' opinion. And that's how I think the function of the legal team has evolved.
Wow. So let's build up a conversation. What does it mean to be a strategic partner to business rather than a support function?
Yeah, just like, I touched upon it, and strategic partner is someone who gets there early, who shapes the decisions, right? Support function will wait for the query to be brought in, the request to be brought in. And as a strategic partner, you decide, you are one of the important stakeholders who, cohesively work as a unit with the business, right? That's very important. If you work in a silo as a compliance function, then you will remain in a silo. You will be just like a checkbox, but our role is not anymore of that, right? When you're a strategic partner, you greatly influence the business decisions, right? And that's very important as a, for a legal team to be a strategic partner and also get that kind of visibility to ensure, we are fully doing the justice to our role.
Can you share some examples for viewers out there? Okay, what do you mean by a strategic partner?
Sure, with pleasure. So, okay, one example is like, when a business wants to expand, say in other geographies, right? So if you're expanding in other geographies, where are you, where do you want to go, right? So what is the approach that if you want to set up an entity, what is the approach you want to take? Do you want to set up a branch? Do you want to set up entity? So a reactive or compliance function will kind of give, the modalities and what are the steps and this and that. If you're a strategic partner, what you will do? You will, give the entire data point that if you enter into this geography with this particular legal entity base, or these would be the compliance hazards, or that would be the tax risk, or these are going to be your, so basis what is your business objective, then basis that you would rather have you would based on business objectives you will give the entity structure, and the entire legal advice would be aligned with the business objectives, and also think forward thinking. So that's
Wow. So my next one. How do you build a culture of ethical compliance without creating fear or rigidity?
so ethical compliance is not a policing function, so let's not let's not fear it. Okay, ethical compliance is actually, a lot of people need to understand that ethical compliance is basically to safeguard them, right? As a common person, as a salesperson or a marketing person, you don't know what laws you have to comply with, what you need to do. So companies come with, and as company also comprises of different people, it comes together as one unit when they follow a code of conduct, right, or one code that they live by. So ethics are, when they're built in the organization, it becomes easy for the sales and marketing and all other stakeholders to basically, as one guardrail that will, help them comply and comply with the laws, and also live by the, letter and spirit of our code. So that basically helps them to, do the business with confidence, where they know what is right from wrong. So that's one. Also, lot of the times, ethics have to be the top-down approach. When they see the leaders embody the ethics in letter and spirit, and in action and in discussions, it becomes far more easy to drive down that point. Secondly, make it very easy for everybody to understand what do you mean by ethical compliance. Let them have the opportunity to ask questions, take the trainings, have the discussions. I think that's something, modern, practical, business-oriented ethical compliance function would do, like engage, and make it simpler for understanding.
Beautiful. So protecting data isn't just a responsibility, it's a core value that safeguards trust. What does it mean in today's context, according to you, Yugandhara?
So in today's context, our data, personal data is everywhere, as we all know. It has always been, but we were not that fully aware of what. But whenever we give data to anybody, we give it for some purpose, right? There's a purpose for giving that data. It's not, and that purpose, when the other party to whom that data is given safeguards that purpose, right? That is where the trust is built. If I am giving data for particular purpose and then it is used for something else, then you are breaching the trust, right? It's a fundamental thing. Purpose minimization and protecting data is a fundamental thing. As an organization, I think you should also think how you are, how you're limiting the use of data, how you're collecting, how you're, it's not right now. Up until now, it was more or less like an ethical responsibility. Now it's a legal responsibility. We are in the, even in India. So earlier we used to look at geographies like EU and all, and so they have, such strong data protection laws, but we have now those built in here. And with the advent of AI, where again personal data can be misused in so many ways, right? Right now MeitY is building just guidelines for AI use and all of that, but all of that will ultimately be integrated. And I think it is important for organizations to, when they build their systems, to kind of think, privacy by design. Privacy has to be at the core of every process that they create, because that is how, the trust and the base organizations thrive on reputation, right? I mean, you cannot go and sell outside if your reputation is eroding. So for you to create that trust, if you're collecting data, you have to be able to create the trust, and that's how your reputation is also built. So yeah.
Beautiful. So Yugandhara, what role does risk assessment play in enabling innovation rather than restricting it?
I don't know why we think that risk assessment will restrict any innovation. In fact, innovation thrives because of risk assessment. You know what you are, so you know you can go confidently and create when you know that okay, whatever I'm creating, whether that's patentable, whether that's going to add value to the organization, that's what I'm going to do, right? When somebody, or when I say a legal team is going to do that, right? When you come with some innovative ideas, the legal team would be looking at it, whether that's feasible, whether that's practicable, what would be regulatory safeguards if you have to actually implement it, right? And whether we can monetize it by getting some patents around it. So all of that. So basically your innovation get wings because of the risk assessment and the guardrails that are set by the legal team. So yeah, look at it positively.
Wow. So Yugandhara, how do you approach balancing speed of business with legal diligence?
There is no trade-off, right? In today's day and age, speed and legal diligence, there's no trade-off. They go hand in hand, right? So how do how people would say, how do they go hand in hand when something has to be done like in next 1 hour? But for that to be done in next 1 hour, have you built in the processes? Have you built in the systems that will enable you to do that, right? Like in my career, I have, initially I was more of an independent worker, right? Because I'm an individual contributor. So I looked at speed as something that I can do expeditiously. But now when I look at speed of delivery, I look at the processes and enablement for my team. If I have to, if something comes like an urgent request, how they can review it? Do they know what are their negotiables versus non-negotiables? What are their exception approvals processes? So once you build the processes, once you build the policies, once the team knows where to go in, and they also have to know what are their non-negotiables, right? And the practical approach to the exceptions and practical approach to the whole legal question, that's where again reputational risk, regulatory risk becomes non-negotiable for me. And once you know that this is not going to be discussed, then that's it. But whatever can be discussed, then that can be expedited.
Wow. So Yugandhara, according to you, what are the most common legal blind spots businesses overlook today?
So I think businesses have become very smart over the period of time. Their interaction with legal team has increased. So a lot of the businesses do know things. Where blind spots occur, I think that occurs in sometimes in a very high value transactions or in a complex transactions where you have too many things to look after to, right? When you have too many moving elements, and then in those, what I've seen is, not figuring who is going to own IP, or even smallest things like service level metrics being, absurdly or ambiguously drafted. Then those are the things that, generally interfere, that become blind spot, because there were too many fundamentals that you had to look at and too many core points that you had to look at, that you had to let go, or you didn't have the time to think about certain things that remain ambiguous. So blind spots always, I have seen a lot of times also, MOUs being treated as something sacrosanct. So much, again, as legal team, as much you educate your business, the blind spots will keep reducing. As much you engage with your business, blind spots will keep reducing, and that I have seen through my career. But yes, I mean, especially in high value, complex commercial deals, especially IPR and ownership of IPR, that they remain.
Wow. So what leadership lessons have global cross-jurisdictional roles have taught you over the years?
So, we have, when we grow up, I'll just go a bit personal.
Yeah.
When
We are covering personal section also. It's
no. As in, I want to give
why I'm going to inform you that this is a coffee conversation where professional, personal will overlap.
Yeah.
Because हम conversation कर रहे तो it is not कि मैं professional section के time पे मैं बोलूँगा नहीं personal में मत जाना. It is we are here to enjoy, get those smiles, get those memories, and spread your learnings.
Thank you.
Please.
So, no, I was saying that when I was growing up, I thought, because I grew up in Mumbai and my exposure was limited to the city and more or less to the state, I didn't see the other side of India, right? So my understanding of India was Mumbai. And then, you know, a lot of people don't, oh, when I went to college and all of my understanding changed. So same when it goes cross border, right?
Yeah.
Then your understanding again broadens, and you know the way you are used to working in Indian culture or ethos. And it's not that the culture or ethos are, you know, bad, good or bad. It's just different, right? It's just different. What works for one culture may not work for another culture, and that you have to understand right in the beginning. You should not go with some preconceived notions,
Yes.
which I have seen people assuming certain things. Okay, so that's one thing. And you have to build trust through differences, right? You different, and in fact one may have to invest, like, you know, in my past organization and even currently I have a manager sitting somewhere else, I have peers sitting somewhere else, I had a team member sitting somewhere else, right? So you have when you are interacting with stakeholders of those types, you have to understand what works for them, what does not work for them. And I think the whole organization culture is one thread that binds us all. So obviously that cannot ever be, you know, everything goes through that. Like, you know, if you interact with someone, you know, my exposure has been, you know, international commercial contracts, and so many times I initially used to feel that this is not such a point that we continue going over and over again. Why are we, you know, negotiating this? And, you know, like, especially privacy, AI, all of that, initially the way now we have, you know, in India also we have, but when I started that, it was very sticky points for some of the jurisdictions which I don't want to name, but that understanding you have to develop, that you know, their cultural sensitivities and sensibilities are different than ours. And yeah, I mean, you hear them and then find a way across, right? And also invest in coaching, invest in interaction, invest in relationship building.
Wow, beautiful. So, Yugandhara, how do you ensure the legal function stays future ready in today's fast evolving industries?
Yeah, and you know what? A legal function has to always remain future ready ever since I've started, because so many laws have changed ever since we started. So many things, so many you know, courts and, you know, tribunals, everything has been changing. People may say, oh, legal system in India hasn't changed much, but the laws and all have changed. So for the team and for us to keeping abreast of everything, ensuring that there are regular trainings, right? Regulatory environment, whatever is changing, you have to sense that in advance and bring that in your processes, your templates, the way of working. So that's very important according to me. And like today with AI, right? AI coming in picture. We are taking so many AI trainings. We are learning about it. We learned EU AI Act. We are also, you know, glued to what MeitY is rolling out. All of that. I think all lawyers are doing that. All lawyers who are, you know, preparing their teams for what's coming next. But again, I keep telling people that please don't forget to keep human in loop. You know, that's a blind spot. I think a lot of people think that, oh,
Nice
you know,
one.
I searched that on so and so platform and this is the answer. But you know, it how you search and what you search and what are the prompts you use, all of that is very important. So yes, one is that understanding for the legal team that you can never sit still. You have to keep evolving and you have to be attuned to the you know, happenings around you, and especially, like, you know, if you're working in MNCs and all, not just laws or developments in India but even abroad, right? And therefore your interaction with various law firms, with your colleagues abroad, your, you know, readings, all of that actually helps.
Wow. So you touched about grooming your team. So my question related to that only. How do you mentor and develop high performing legal teams in today's AI and so much information overload?
So, you know, I would like to give them the platform and the space that makes them dream bigger, right? Aspire more, do more, right? And you know, I mean, especially those who are high performing team members, I would what I invest a lot of time in coaching. I am very transparent as a leader to the extent that of course I can be, and it is very important that we all align our objectives in line with organizational goals and objectives, and where it is going, in which direction it is going. So what are the skill sets maybe you're lacking, or maybe that needs development, what you're doing well, keep doing that. But I invest a lot of time in one-on-one coaching. I think that's something that creates a psychological safety also for them. When you are having those kind of honest conversations, telling them yourself what is going on in the organization, because as a leader maybe I have more broader picture and more understanding of what's going on everywhere in the other jurisdictions or even in India market. So that's something I constantly do, and I also recognize their aspirations, and I try to, you have to fight for your team, right? Because as a leader I have to protect my team and try to help fulfill their aspirations. So if they are delivering, I have to help them meet their aspirations, their goals. That's
Wow.
important for me.
So you are giving me, what do you say, food thoughts for new conversations with you. One is uh, coaching your in-house legal team and nurturing. So there
Yeah.
are two parts. So we'll discuss later and plan out, because wonderful thoughts you have apna ke as a leader you said on this platform ke bhai, you need to nurture your team and protect them. So that is a true leader who believes, has an open conversation and guides the team to in their growth part also. Not only
Okay,
we
sure.
perform in the as
Looking
an in-house
forward.
counsel,
Yeah.
but so same type of conversation I had with Pavi Jain. She believes in what do you say, RQ, but she's being what do you say, give her another dimension of relationship building with not only with the team members. She's focused on team. She sits with the team members like you, has apna heart-to-heart conversations, and so we did what do you say, a LinkedIn post on relationship building, and focusing the interesting
Yeah.
insight shared during the coffee conversation.
Yeah.
So that was she got so happy when you focused on my conversation and guiding what you say, the future leaders, how to be that RB. RQ को उसको लेके गई RB पे.
Right.
So that was beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Okay. So Yugendra, who has been your biggest cheerleaders professionally and personally?
So professionally and personally, my family, of course, and even one of my best friend, and professionally, I have been fortunate over the last few years to be mentored and being led by very wonderful women. Okay, so for last I think 8-9 years I have they have changed, but all of them have been women, and they have been very supportive. So I think I would call them as my cheerleaders, because even when we posted about this on LinkedIn, I tagged my ex-manager, and she was I mean, the comment that she left on my LinkedIn post really made me smile, because she is in US and I am here, but we don't meet. But how that relationship is built despite the space and
Yes.
so
this
I
is-
would call all my of course my family is my biggest support system, but of course my leaders who have helped me come up
Wow.
and thrive.
So thank you to Coffee. You got connected to your what do you say, past colleagues. This happens. We have got this what do you say, feedback from the speakers whenever there is an announcement post or another post, or your episode is getting highlighted, or you're doing it. So there are a lot of surprise things happens in the speaker's life. It's from the industry, colleagues, seniors. There is a career booster, so many, what do you say, opportunities to become a speaker. So much things happens, because this is what we want. कि you are sharing your journey, you're inspiring, and there should be people outside who are watching, listening, and following you, and are inviting you or taking you to that level. So, my last question for a professional journey round: what advice would you give to young women lawyers who want to take leadership position like you in the in-house corporate legal team?
Yeah. So, we are, what I have seen is young women lawyers or even women in a leadership position overall, right? What our journey has been is we have been always trusted executors, not the strategic partners or someone who you go to advise for. And that's something that I would like the young women to not make or repeat the mistakes that we made, right? Where, be there. Don't wait for to achieve the perfection that, oh, I have to know this subject matter completely, fully well. Nobody knows everything completely and fully, right? If you have a thought, share it. Speak up, advocate to yourself, engage with business. Of course, in a professional kind of a setting, and never hesitate to, ask for your seat at the table. That's something that we all have made those mistakes, and that, it's fine to err, it's fine, you can, and nobody's perfect, nobody, so just, claim your seat at the table, speak up when you have a point, and don't keep, it could be wrong, right? It could be wrong, but if you have a thought, it could be right as well. Obviously you've thought about it, and that's why you have that thought, right? You have some experience about it. Speak up. If you don't speak up, then you will not be seen as someone who is contributing to the strategic decision making and would mostly be a reliable executor.
Wow. So let's go to the next round and understand Yugandhara as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years.
So I come from a typical middle class family. My father was a teacher. My mom was working with a central government. So we had a very proper, nice middle class upbringing. I've seen both of them work very hard, and I was the eldest of three daughters. So I used to, one thing that, maybe I may be digressing, but what I always saw, my father getting a comment, oh, you have three daughters, okay? And it was so, even I had not even heard the word feminism or whatever that time, but my father used to be so proud, yes, I have three daughters. And I think that was the confidence, and he never stopped us from doing anything. In fact, he was the most encouraging person. He wanted me to practice more than work, but I was more aligned towards corporate jobs and all of that. So he was our cheerleader, So I think it was brilliant that, it was more of the environment that I have grown up in is more of, something that you have to do things. You have to be a doer. So yeah.
Wow. So Yugandhara, what hobbies or interest helps you disconnect from structured thinking?
My hobbies and interests. So I love traveling, and I love reading, but every day I love walking. So that's my space: music, walk, reading. But I consume suspense novels like Possessed Person. So I have stopped doing that now. But yeah, those are some of my.
Wow. So from your suspense novel, if you want to reread, which one would it be and why?
Oh, difficult question. I don't like to go back to the same book because I know what's the end, especially in the suspense ones.
Yeah.
But the one that I read was Silent Patient. I was, and of course the Gone Girls. That was crazy book. That was one of its kind, and I wondered what was wrong or right with the writer that she could, build this narrative. So I would like to go in her brain, in fact.
Wow.
And it was made into a movie as well.
Oh, interesting. So you said about walking. Have you tried, what do you say, there is some, recent post and about back walking and their benefits?
Oh, no, sorry. I'm sure there are benefits because back walking you have to consciously, but I've not read anything about that.
Have you tried?
No, I'm walking. I walk in a community society garden, so I would rather not try that.
Okay. So let's go to your college days. What are your memories and experience from there?
So my college was primarily government law college because I've done 5-year law course. So after 12th, I went to government law college, and my memories I have very good memories from because that's the only college life that I know, and we had a lot of fun. Again, we were talking about diversity. My first lesson in diversity was from Government Law College, right? Because we had people who were, sons and daughters of judges, High Court judges,
Yeah.
to, biggest of the law firm partners and all of that, to people who came from tier 2, tier 3 cities or even villages, or from other, because it was Government Law College is a very renowned college, so a lot of people came with a lot of aspirations from a different smaller cities as well, and I was somewhere in the middle, right? So the diversity was, the first lesson in diversity I saw it there. We also had very good faculty, but what we as students look forward to was the visiting faculty. We had brilliant visiting faculties, and I think
Yes.
that tradition still continues, because I interact with my team members and I ask them, do these people still come? And we had Zia Modi, and she was really big even at that point and all that. They coming and delivering lectures. So that's something that I will really be thankful to my college for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, if your friends had to describe Yugendra in 3 words, what would they say?
They will definitely think that I am hardworking, strong willpower, and resilient.
Wow.
But if I have to describe myself, then
One
I
wale.
will. Okay.
Okay. Is there a personal routine that helps you stay balanced?
Yeah, I don't eat sugar. So balanced as in manage my work stress and all of that, right? So see, there are days when I'm stressed. Okay, there are days when you don't sleep because something happened in office, so there's something going on, right? Or you're worried about your next meeting or next project, what's going to happen in, it's a high stress job. I will
Yeah.
not deny that. But as I said, nature helps me. Yeah, going down, just feeling the air, music, all of that helps me. But there are days when life does not feel balanced, and that's okay. I think it's part of your job.
Wow. So, uh, where do you see Yugandhara in next 5 years, professionally and personally?
Well, I just want to be, I don't want to, say that, okay, I want to reach this, right now I'm an India legal aid, I want to be a global. No, I don't want to measure my success in terms of the positions, but yes, I enjoy today what I'm doing, and I want to continue to enjoy what I'm doing, right? And I want to have the beautiful personal life that I have, and I want to have the life. I mean, I don't want to be stagnant anywhere. That's my goal, right? As a professional, I want to keep learning, keep doing, and also keep aspiring for more. I don't want to put any ceiling or name any designation that I want to be here or there. It's more for my aspiration. I want to keep aspiring for more. Why not? Why
Beautiful.
should there be any ceiling?
Beautiful. So, my last one is googly one. Describe Yugandhara in one word.
Okay, that's one word is very difficult. But if I have to say in one word, then I would definitely say resilient, because I have persevered over the time, and I have been resilient. So yeah.
Beautiful. So, let's put in the hot seat, the rapid fire round.
Oh
Your
my
go to
God.
comfort food.
Go to comfort food, rice in some form or the other.
Wow. Your favorite color.
Favorite color, blue.
Early mornings or late nights.
No day. I can't do both. Just 9 to 5, 9 to 8, 9 to 10, 9 to 9.
Wow. Planning everything or going with the flow.
I hate planning too much.
One word that best describes your leadership style.
Human.
Okay. Best piece of advice received.
Don't compare your journey to others.
Your favorite hangout place during GLC days.
Oh, that was Nariman Point.
And your dream travel place.
Dream travel place. Been to many places except for US. So yeah,
Wow. So last one. Tea or coffee to recharge?
coffee.
You're the coffee share. So
Yeah.
let's try. You did well. And here's a gift.
Thank you.
It has been autographed also. Wait. I'll autograph it because they did a confusion. So let's wrap up. So, Yugandhar, your journey reflects the power of strategic thinking, steady leadership, and human centric decision making in the legal profession. Your story reinforces the impactful lawyers don't just mitigate risk, they enable trust, growth, and resilience. Thank you for sharing your insights today and for uh, telling us about how to navigate leadership roles in a complex world. So, like that, there are 1,000 plus speakers who have shared their professional, personal journeys. Subscribe to the Coffee Corner Show on YouTube, and we also on Spotify. And implement those insights in your lives and see a better 2026. And we continue a conversation or a cup of coffee in person or on Zoom with another speaker. So, take care, enjoy your Sunday, and happy holidays. Happy Eid, happy Nowruz to all our viewers out there. Thank you.